Well, that's right. Yeah, in fact, I've met some people who have made it decidedly one way the other way, which is very good.
Why is that?
Frank Zappa was one of those.
Yeah.
He did some very, very funny things. Yeah. Well, what do you? No, wait a minute. I'm gonna listen. Maybe we could start by talking about. I need to go over. I don't want to go over any biographical kind of material, if possible.
Thank you.
Not what you ate for breakfast, surely. Uh, how do you feel about the state of pop music and or the music scene today, whatever you call it? You know, it has so many different influences, so many different things happening to it. Could I have just your kind of out of your head opinions? You know, what's? Shall I start with Jack? Let me get Eric.
It's very healthy. It's very, very healthy. You know, I mean, you said it in actual fact. You know, all these influences and things. And you really answered the question because I mean, that's just what's happening. I suppose.
Is blues still going to be the? I mean, it still seems to be the basic thing that everybody's working on. This is the foundation that we're operating on, and bringing the other influences.
Blues is very young, I imagine. You know, as a kind of foundation. You know, I mean, I fall back on it the whole time. And use it the whole time. And most people seem to be. You know, I mean, the really good people around at the moment for me are blues musicians. You know.
Let me try something a little different. Suppose if you were talking to somebody who had never heard your records before, somebody who didn't really know what the scene was about, maybe somebody from outer space, and you're trying to tell them what's happening and what you do, you know, in your place and time. How would you sum it up now? See, I'd rather you do it than for me to have to do it, you know.
Well, I wouldn't, I just wouldn't do it. You know.
You're an entertainer? Or what would you?
I don't know, Are we? I'm a musician, definitely. I know that much.
Mm-hmm.
But that wouldn't mean anything to somebody from outer space anyway, so. The music we play is just what happens when we pick up our instruments. It can be all different things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lots of influences. It's never the same. Really, that's all I would say.
Is it mostly head arrangements? I mean, what you do? Do you ever write down on paper, or do you just usually kind of set it down in your head?
We hardly ever write down anything.
It just happens. It sounds like arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like arrangements, but it isn't. You know, it just happens that way.
Because of that, do you tend to, I think, change performance by performance?
Yeah, it changes every time. It's frightening. Yeah.
Never the same.
You never know quite where you are. It's good.
Could you give me an idea of how a Cream number would evolve, say from the beginning, when one of you would write a song? Where do you go? What would you do? Now, I'm a little far away from everybody, so I'm gonna have to find out who would like to tackle that. Eric?
You can hold the mic in the middle and then turn it up.
Oh, it has no turn up. It just sort of picks up the loudest voice.
I see. I see. Well, that's that then.
Thoroughly on.
Well, most of the stuff we do isn't really conventional in any way. I mean, we don't actually write songs and rehearse them and do them. You know, we have in fact the repertoire we have now we've had for a very long time, but we just keep it because it's only like a launching pad for the instrumental things that we do, which is really what we do. You know, more than anything else, it's just kind of improvising.
You know, I think the highest comment or compliment that somebody could pay a group artistically today is the fact that you don't sound like anybody else, any one or two people, which used to be the case. There are so many different things happening that all groups sound differently. The Traffic, for instance, I know when I was in England, every song is completely different, it seems to me. Do you feel that's true, that's what's kind of happening?
You mean with every song being different, with people with...
Well, not necessarily, but the groups...
oh yeah, well the groups, they're kind of growing up, and they're less sort of childish about it. They don't just imitate anymore, they actually sort of originate things, of their own accord. Most of the good groups do, they evolve their own thing without help,
Jack, starting with you, who do you like especially in the scene today? You know, that you admire or enjoy or respect,
Uh,
whatever you call it.
Lots of people, you know, just lots of people. Beatles, Frank Zappa, um, lots of people. You know, how can I name people? Because I'm not like anybody when I hear them. I do mostly.
How important, it's a little difficult for us to really judge over here. I noticed it was very different when I went to London. But how important are the Beatles considered over there among the groups themselves?
Well, everybody seems to look to the Beatles when they make an album to really be, you know, ahead of everybody else. And I think that's true. They've been ahead of everybody else in every album they've done. You know, I think, and that's the way they're regarded in England as the rest of the world.
I kind of think that some people overlook the Stones too. I think they're very. I don't think they've received some of the accolades that they should have received. How do you feel about the Stones? Well, you know, I think a lot of people place them sometimes, you know, far second to the Beatles. But at times I think that they're kind of ahead in ways. I don't know. Do you agree? Am I out of it? Is that a loaded question?
I think it is, yeah.
Sorry. I didn't mean to be. I'm just trying to size them up. What do you think about the Stones?
Oh, I like them, yeah. I know of quite a few of them very well, you know, Charlie Watts and Jagger and Brian Jones. And I like them, yeah. I like what they're sort of trying to do.
What is the scene like for groups now in London? I noticed that, you know, if you go by those terrible charts they have over there, what's the Humperdinck? Who's the... Yeah, what's happening to the music scene over there?
Engelbert Humperdinck's happening. So it's happening in England. The scene in England is split sort of really completely in two, you know. There's Engelbert Humperdinck and people like, there's a lot of them, you know, like that. And then there's groups and so on, you know. It's strange. It's just split down the middle. You know, people who make records to make commercial records to, you know, singles and so on, and people who just play. You know.
Eric, I just happened to hear your cut with Aretha Franklin on a new album the other day. Would you mind telling me something about that session? What she liked? Did you actually work with her, or was this done?
No, that was just off the bat. You know, I mean, we were all up at the studio. Just visiting, you know, we knew that Aretha was recording, and they had two guitarists in there from the south, from Muscle Shoals, who were kind of were just playing chords and things, and you know, I mean, there wasn't any kind of competition. It's just that, you know, Tommy Dowd, the engineer at Atlantic, you know, we're kind of very, you know, we're all very close, the group and him, and he just thought it would be, I guess he thought it would be a nice idea for me to go in there and try and do something. So I just did what I would have done, you know, on any blues track. You know. You know, I couldn't make the diminished chords though. You know, they dropped me out of that with the bum notes. Yeah.
No, I don't quite understand whether the people were playing the instruments in it at the same time that Aretha was, or were these? Does she usually record
we did
separately? Lays down a piano track with
yeah,
her singing.
actually,
and then
that's
they
what
add
happened. First of all, it started out with everyone playing in there, trying to, you know, on one take, and then it kind of got very cluttered up, and so Aretha just put down a track with piano and bass and drums, and then I went in the next day and put guitar onto that, and then they added brass after that, you know.
You were there to see her put down.
Yeah,
the
we
track.
went down. We were there the first time, and we were there
track.
when she put down the track. Yeah.
On the piano and the singing. What do you think of her? She's...
Oh, that actually is kind of the best piece of that kind of singing that I've ever heard.
Yeah, on that particular track.
That blues, that's
Beautiful.
yeah. Well, I thought the guitar was handled very well too. I mean, you know, what do you do with Aretha Franklin?
Very timid, you know, but then I couldn't. You know, it was a bit of a shock to me to be in that position. I really couldn't handle it as well as I could if I had time to think about it. You know.
Listen, since we're kind of interested in the past as well as the future and present in this series, and I don't want to put you on the spot with the other people, but how would you compare the Yardbirds with whom you had worked, say, at the time when you were with them, you know, with the Cream and what you're doing musically?
How would I compare the Yardbirds
Yes,
with this band?
Yeah.
Well, they were just. I mean, the ideology, the ideology, the ideology.
The ideology.
Ideology.
Right.
The ideology of the band was kind of the same. You know, I mean, we used to do. You know, for that time it was fairly advanced because we used to do all the long instrumental breaks. You know, but really it wasn't. It wasn't the same because I mean they weren't. You know, I hate to like be schneidy and put people down, but they weren't really very good. You know, I mean, and it used to fall to pieces a lot. You know, and it really was a very shaky band musically. And in that way, it doesn't even compare with this.
Yeah, but you were doing a lot of things then that I heard the San Francisco groups do later. And
yeah, I agree with you.
We came to throw into
that
that horrible quote psychedelic end quote type thing that the Yardbirds were certainly pioneering.
I agree with that. Yeah, there was nothing. You know, I mean, the whole West Coast thing isn't like new and inventive. It's just rock and roll. You know, I mean, I haven't heard that many groups from the West Coast on record who do anything really outstanding musically. I mean, mostly they seem to get into lyrics a lot and they get into sort of sounds a lot, but I don't think they really stand out musically as inventors, you know.
Well, I just wondered if you felt any affinity to them.
To them, yeah, I do as it
Basically
happens.
through blues, maybe.
Yeah,
In particular.
yeah. You know, I do just because as long as the image, you know, I mean, there's always going to be this kind of terrible phony image above everything. But I mean, you know, as it happens, you know, most of them are probably very good bands, you know. And if you just accept them on that level and don't try and make it in, you know, don't sort of be disillusioned by the fact that they're not as exciting as the word psychedelic is.
Jack, do you find that a three-man group has a problem with that hollow spot, that fourth part that we're, you know, usually accustomed to?
No.
How do you handle that?
I think the reason why there isn't a hole because we don't really play harmonically. You know, that's one thing that we don't do. You know, we really play in lines. You know, and if there was another instrument, it would have to be one that was playing chords. You know, and none of us play chords as such. You know, we use chords, but we're not like a harmonic band where there's people putting down the changes. You know, we just play in lines, and the changes really are suggested to you know, a listener who, you know, can appreciate it. The harmonic changes are implied. You know. And so I don't think there is any hole. You know.
Well, I was amazed by the sound you could put out, and I kept telling myself, you know, three people. This was the first time that I had a chance to hear you. I was just astounded by five or six different instruments. It seemed like 6 different sounds going at the same time. I just didn't see. You don't do any overdubbing now. This is.
What we do is independent. You know, I mean, we're all completely independent of one another. You know, it's like a really good guitarist's right hand. You know, he's totally different. He's independent of his left hand. You know, that's how we work. But it's the centre, is the core just stays the same.
I mean, the three-part
Just
thing, that becomes much more possible. You've got 3 points working into it.
Yeah.
If you've got 4, you can get lines going and you get like a hole in the middle, which you can get a hole more with 4 than you can with 3. in my opinion.
Listen, your album, the one that I have, doesn't have on the back, doesn't tell who plays what, and I don't read the Teeny Bopper magazines, and I haven't seen you in concert before, so I don't know. Could you kind of give me a rundown on what you play? And now I know what Eric.
Eric plays guitar, I play bass, harmonica, and some other things as well. And I sing, and Eric sings. Ginger plays drums and other things as well.
Are you branching out now and playing?
Yeah,
learning more
on
instruments as
this
you-
next record, yeah, we got Jack's playing cello on it, beautiful cello, and Eric's playing acoustic, and Jack plays acoustic guitar, and we've got flutes and ocarinas, and Felix, the producer, plays trumpet and viola, and it's all sorts of things.
Were any of you, I mean, did you actually take music lessons, or was this, like so many of the others I've taught you, just something that you picked up?
Well, I think I'm the only one that took music lessons, but it took me a long time to unlearn, you know, what I had sort of been taught, you know. And it's only happened in the last couple of years, you know, for me, really. I had to really work at it, you know.
What about if I may have a couple of final questions. We hear a lot of things from influences from the classics coming in now, and I just wonder if people are consciously aware of it, or if it's just kind of something subconscious that happens. Somebody the other day was, I guess it was in a score that George Martin was doing for Matt Monroe, and Martin recognized something in the orchestration, and he said, well, now this is, the Swan of so-and-so by so-and-so, and the cat didn't know it. He'd never heard the song before.
Yeah, well,
Does this happen?
He probably heard it, but he'd not realised. Things do that. You're influenced a lot. Everybody is by things, and you don't know you're being influenced by it. If you could record everything you did all the time and then look at it back next week, you could probably see yourself being influenced by something and then doing it a few days later, and without realising it. This happens a lot.
The thing is, we all listen to. In fact, I should say personally, I listen to pop music least of all. Pop. I like the best of pop music, or if you want to put it like that. I like as much as anything, but I also like music of other kinds as much, And I suppose these influences must come in, when you hear things, you must be influenced by them.
Well, since you don't write songs as such, I mean, you said that it's pretty a spontaneous kind of thing. Do you find that music comes?
That wasn't actually strictly true. I don't think
Okay.
that was true as regards to our stage performance, but not in the studio really.
Oh.
In the studio, we definitely write songs.
Are there times away from the studio where individually now you'll be working on an individual song, you got an idea, and you'll sit down like the cliche composer out of the movies, at the piano and write something, or at the guitar, preferably?
Yeah, it does happen like that. It does sometimes happen like that. Most of the time, I get ideas when I'm traveling. So it seems to
It
do
seems
that
to come
me.
easy as the music.
There's nothing else to do, I suppose. So I get ideas when you're traveling in a plane or in a car or something.
Which seems to come first, or easiest?
Well, for me, it's always rhythms and intervals. I always get a rhythm. I feel a rhythmic pattern. And then intervals that sort of gradually fit themselves. Not harmonic, because I've got away from that.
Eric, what about you in the writing?
I'm very, very slack. I don't hardly ever write at all. In fact,
When he does, it's good.
In fact, no, I wouldn't ever really make a songwriter, because it just.
Was it a hard task for you? I mean, something that takes a little extra? I mean,
Yeah, it is, because I can't actually trap anything. It's the hard thing about, I imagine, about songwriting. The thing that I encounter is that, I play something and I think it's nice, but I don't think it's nice enough, so I change it. And then I don't think it's nice enough then, and so I change it. So it doesn't ever get to a static position, And so, I never actually get anything down or done, I've always got these little snippets of things.
You must get a tape recorder, man. That's the answer. It's just to record lots of things, and then you get ideas, and listening to it afterwards, I think that's a very good way.
is there anything for the record now that, or off the record, or anything that you'd like to say to possibly as large as an audience as we're going to have in an interval like this? It doesn't have to be about music if you don't want to, just something that you'd like put down, recorded.
That's very difficult. It really is.
Giving you a complete podium now, absolutely free reign, and no censorship.
Oh, well, ask Eric first. Ask him and then
It could be anything.
Be yourself. That's good. That's all.
I won't say it.
You won't say it?
No. Whatever it was I was going to say. But, I ain't got anything really to say. That's really the main thing.
Well, that's okay too.
All right?
Right? Just go on.